really exciting to have our third event on the 5 personality patterns. And really, Leah, the speaker that we have, and she's a master facilitator, she studied much more than this book. The reason why we chose this book, Leah, was because it is your easiest translation. Leah's literally studied all kinds of personality patterns that people go into over the last 18 years and the origins of this, and I'll let her go into that, but she really understands this content. But this is the best book, she said, that makes it simple for us. So I'm really grateful that she found a simple book for us to get into. Before I dive in, I want to introduce our very special guest speaker and facilitator today. Leah Piper is a love relationship expert, a private mentor, and positive psychology coach, assisting individuals and couples, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today, in overcoming past traumatic experiences in order to have flourishing relationships, having studied energetic responsibility and the 5 personality pattern types for over 15 years. She's found its methods to be a life-changing, both personally and as a facilitator of groups in her private practice. So Leah, I want to just bring you right in, and I would love for you to give our group here, what are they going to get from this particular event? We've done 2 others, which were fantastic. Who was with us on the 2 others? Raise your hand. And how did you like those? Yeah, it was really helpful. So maybe we can debrief on those and then jump in, or however you want to do it, Leah, but I'm going to let you take it away. Leah?
Since we've...
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So just a brief summary regarding the pattern types is that as we have gone through our childhoods, we've all been through experiences that where one way of saying it is like energy hits our nervous system and we have a hard time managing it, right? We can get triggered, we can go into fight or flight or freeze. And so over time, as we are coming of age, when our little bodies are sensitive, there's a way with which the human body creates patterns of survival. And so the pattern structure that was originally discovered by William Reich, a famous psychologist of the 20th century, and he was able to kind of start to decode what was happening with people. And as he started to figure out these patterns that the human body would repeat, he was able to create these categories. And what is interesting about them is, although as we grow into adulthood, we start to see that these triggers and the way that we react is no longer as functional or as healthy or as helpful as maybe they once were. We have the power to start to change those patterns and to catch ourselves and to react differently. But the flip side of the patterns is that they also come with some talents. You know, we discover that these patterns also have a great positive effect on who we are as human beings, that there are many positive ways we react to the world as a result of these patterns as well. So sort of like the long-term end game is to be able to recognize the patterns in yourself, then recognize when your loved ones or your colleagues or the interactions that you have when other people go into patterns, how to come out of those patterns, support other people coming out of those patterns, and eventually be able to acquire the talents of all the patterns. Once you really learn about them, you can start to acquire all of the superpowers, if you will, of the various pattern types. And that's really exciting. So in summary, there are 5 pattern types.
Shall I show the photo right now of all the pattern types while you go through them?
Love that. There is the leaving pattern. And that's the first one. It's also the youngest pattern out of the bunch. This often starts to get crystallized in the nervous system if there was a trauma, or, you know, whether that was like a birth trauma or something happens usually before the child's able to speak. So it's nonverbal situations can happen where basically the message gets in, body's hurt, I don't really want to be in one. So they have a tendency to leave the body and not fully be embodied, especially when they're triggered. The next pattern type, but to just also say that the superpower of this pattern is they tend to be um, mathematical, artists, scientists, very, very, very smart, very psychic. They get high, they test very, very, very high, and don't always have to study to get those good test scores. It's like they're able to connect to the ethers, I call it the airwaves, where the everything exists, and they can often pull out solutions and answers to questions that they may have very rapidly. Um, Next is the merger. And the merger, you can kind of tell it's got this kind of classic hourglass figure. The merger usually gets established around toddler age. And this is a pattern type that has a tendency, when triggered, to lose its core and to other reference instead of self-reference. Another way of saying that is they look outside themselves for the answer instead of inside themselves for the answer. They also have a tendency to puddle. And what I mean by puddling is falling apart. It's like the energy hits them and they can't, they just kind of, they can go into sort of this bottomless pit of despair. And their superpower is their pleasure loopers. They make awesome friends. They lead life through their heart. They're incredible givers, incredibly generous, and oftentimes the life of the party. The next pattern type is the endurer. And the endurer, you can kind of see the stocky build. This often happens somewhere in childhood, but usually older than toddler age. And the endurer, very much, you can kind of see how energy kind of comes in. If you're looking at the picture, it's like energy comes into their nervous system, and what they do is they ground it. So they're sort of the classic stonewallers. They, when faced with a struggle, a challenge, or a problem, tend to take what I call these tent stakes. They drive them down into the ground, and they're not going to budge until they figure it out. And they can be very stoic. They're very calm. Their superpower is they're grounded. They're really connected to being grounded and calm. They're good in emergencies. They are often teachers. So people like to sit next to endurers because they feel safe and comfortable around an endurer. So if you want to think about your favorite teacher, they were probably an endurer. Next is the aggressive pattern type, and you can kind of see the build, right? It's athletic, broad shoulders. A lot of military people tend to be aggressive, especially Navy SEALs. The magical talent, the superpower of the aggressive is they are highly competent. They learn fast, they move fast, they don't have a lot of patience for people who are slow learners. They're very charismatic and fun. They, however, at some pivotal age, usually around 8, 9, 10, they get the message that there's usually a neglect happening somehow, oftentimes in the home. And the message that they get is you can't trust anybody. No one's got my back. And everyone's human, therefore everyone's flawed, and I can't depend on anyone but myself. So the core wound is not being able to trust. And so that need to be highly competent and efficient gets drawn in place then because they're on their own. Next is the rigid pattern type, and you can kind of see this straight. Whereas the leading pattern type, I always think the body shape is oftentimes whimsical, kind of willowy, almost like kind of fairy-like. And although the rigid is also very slim, they're a little more athletic, like the aggressive, but not quite as muscle bound. They have a high and fast metabolism, and their strength is discipline. So, whereas the merging pattern, they like indulgence, rigid likes discipline. That's how they sort of deal with their control issues. And so, rigid, we really prize the rigid pattern type in our culture because they're highly efficient. They make great managers. They create beautiful systems. They're highly efficient. But the core wound is you have to be perfect in order to get love. So they often have a perfectionism issues, and they tend to judge they experience great pain over being the judger. Because remember, if the wound is I have to be perfect to get love, it's very painful to have your imperfections pointed out. It's almost like they have to deny that first, because that would mean, a lack of self-worth. So if you, oftentimes they didn't get enough words of affirmation growing up as a kid. And so those are our pattern types. Now, there's one on there called, it's not on there, but it's technically the merger, but we affectionately call it the complicated merger, but classically known as the compensated merger. So what happens with the compensated merger is they look like the merging pattern, but there's something about the neediness in the merger complex that they deny. It's like they don't want to look at that. So what they do, growing up as a kid, that actually that structure did not get them the love that they needed. So they ended up borrowing masks from all the pattern types in order to cover up from themselves the core wound of the merger, which is having a need go unmet. So what's interesting about the compensated merger is that although it's oftentimes a more complex pattern type to peel apart and work with, the light side is they've already started the practice of acquiring all the superpowers of all the pattern types, because they've been using the other pattern types as strategies to avoid looking at their core wound of being a merger. And for transparency's sakes, and a couple of you know this, my pattern types, my primary is compensated merger. So when that strategy doesn't work, it's like, okay, that one's not working. My nervous system will then go to my secondary pattern type, which is the endurer. And I'll drive the tent stakes down, and I'm going to work this out one way or the other. I stop the sniveling and the crying and the falling apart, and I get really stoic really fast, and then I don't need anybody. Whitney, would you share what your pattern types are?
Yes, I would be delighted to share the pattern types that I am still in denial of. So here's what I'll say about the pattern types. I had two different people nail me as aggressive, rigid, and I didn't like it because aggressive and rigid, it's the names, and the names used to be worse, apparently. I was a schizophrenic, right, before?
Yeah, the classic Reichian names that William Reich came up with were masochist for endurer, psychopath for rigid, or for aggressive, schizoid for leaving, and I think those were the three that got changed.
Yeah, so we all got our stuff together, if you know what I mean. Really
Yeah, so
times.
we reworked the names so that they were a little easier to work with.
So what you basically helped me, first of all, this book, I just want to say this book was recommended to me by a psychologist that I was seeing back in January, and through May or June through the COVID. And then maybe you referred it first, Leah, and then he referred it second. Yeah, that was how it went. So I got the book, but I didn't pick it up until the second person recommended it, which is just part of my personality type. I mean, a couple times before people, I don't know if that's a pattern of mine, but if somebody says it more than once, then I really pay attention. So I started reading the book. Leah and I are in a mastermind with a Willow, who is the leaving pattern, just so happens to be willowy. And Leah did a little overview on the personality patterns. And I had wished that we had this happening while she was presenting it, because of being a coach for over 18 years, having this knowledge is so powerful. I mean, it's curative in some cases for people like myself who I just didn't understand why I respond the way I do. And because I help people get healthy for a living, I help people who tend to have, would you agree, sometimes people that are heavier have the merging pattern or the enduring pattern, Leah?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And what I didn't understand that she helped me better get clarity around is my aggressive pattern. I tend to go into other people's energy and space, right, Leah? So I tend to get into somebody. So if you don't hold your space, I'm getting in there because I know how to hold my boundaries. You hold your boundaries. This is something I always have. Been sober for 20 years from alcohol. And I always say, I did my work, you do yours. And so I knew I believed that, but I didn't know to the extent in which I did. So I would go into other people's energy. And so I did contact a few coaches on our team, and I'd say, and I asked questions because I realized that the enduring pattern is the one that pulls up the drawbridge, right, Leah?
Yep. So if
So
you can
go ahead.
imagine, like the endure gets
Yes.
triggered, and what they do is they kind of keep everyone else out. So it's like they run into their castle, they pull up the drawbridge, everyone has to stay outside the moat until they have recovered enough to put down the drawbridge. So what Whitney is saying is that she would end up pushing people's buttons in a way that would probably either have them get their feelings hurt and fall apart, or have them retreat and go away and shut her out. And she was left feeling confused, like, what is the problem? And so what she's learning from a place of energetic responsibility, how to create more elegance and sensitivity to how she holds space for people, is to start to hold her energy at someone else's edge, and that respectfully noticing the unseen boundary of somebody's nervous system and putting the invitation to growth right outside their edge. Another way of saying that is outside your auric field or outside someone's personal space. That we have space that goes beyond our skin, that it is our autonomous sovereign right to occupy. And when someone bulldozes into that space, we often go into pattern because it feels threatening. And that tends to be the scenario with aggressives in particular. And aggressives have a tendency to put leaving pattern type into pattern, and the merger pattern type into pattern. Now, however, a lot of mergers are very attracted to the aggressive, especially the compensated mergers. There's something shiny about those aggressives that they like, that they want to be more like, so they have a tendency to look up to, but they also haven't got the skill set to hold those boundaries at a place with which they can manage their own nervous system so they don't go into pattern around aggressive. So as Whitney starts to become more sensitive to this and read it, she's becoming a better coach and a better
Yes.
leader.
Well, the other thing, what I find interesting is that Willow is a leaving pattern and you're an enduring compensated. So we're actually the three that wouldn't traditionally get along. And as you said, I think, as we do our healing, as you do your work, you don't necessarily go into pattern as frequently. Like I catch myself impinging on other people, and I do apologize pretty quickly. So, but I still do it. I haven't got that perfectionist rigid yet, but I definitely feel better about it. Leah, why don't we get a poll from everybody that's here? There have been some people that have been with us for a while. Why don't we have, I'm going to show them on the screen. Could you do just a little analysis for everybody else? I know what mine are because you helped me find them. I'm
Yeah,
aggressive rigid because Leah is really good at guessing.
I'm a good tracker.
She's a good tracker.
An uncanny ability to track people's patterns.
So why don't we do what those of you who would like to know your pattern?
Rebecca,
Yeah, go ahead.
and
Rebecca's
it
been on
was,
before.
yeah,
Emily.
and I just lost the name.
There's Emily and Rebecca.
Emily, yes, Emily and Rebecca, you two have been on before. Would either of you like to get some support regarding your pattern types?
Gotta take
Sure.
yourself off mute, ladies. Go, Emily.
Oh, okay.
So tell us who you are first. What is your pattern type on here? What's your primary, and what do you think your backup is, so we all can track?
The merger definitely, which made sense because my brother was born when I was like 19 months, maybe a year and a half. When I just had surgery, and so I have so much support, but when people come to support me, I'm like, I don't know what I need. I don't know what I need. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
What else did I read about them? Everything that I read about the merger was like, this is the story of my life.
Uh-huh.
And I'm almost finished with the book. I have a little bit left on the rigid to read. And so for me, I think maybe my secondary is more rigid.
Mm-hmm.
Because the core thing, like it's like, you know, you have skin to muscle to bone, and it's like I don't have a skeleton when it's like my structure is just gone. It's like my bones just disintegrate, and I don't know what's in there. It's like I have a hard time. I'm more in the now. For me, thinking about 5 years from now, thinking about 5 weeks from now is like, I don't even want to go there. I don't know if that helps. But
well, that's sounding a little bit more like the leaving pattern than the rigid pattern. I'm curious, when you take a look at like what some of your superpowers are, would you say that there are parts of your life, whether it's at home or at work, where you love to organize and create systems and have like a pattern to the chaos? Is that a skill set of yours?
Definitely, if I can control my surroundings, and I haven't been able to move lately, so things are just not in place here, and but I'm good, you know, I'm like, it's temporary, you know, I'm not like in complete pattern, I guess, what you would call it.
Yeah. And would you say when you get triggered, how do you react when your feelings get hurt? What's the go-to system? Do you have a tendency to get defensive, or to cry, or to deny? Do you leave your body?
I run, I get away. Somebody hurts me, I'm like, okay, I don't want to be around you anymore. Like I detach physically, even. Yeah, and then sometimes I'm in my head, I'm like, revenge.
Mm-hmm.
I have it or whatever, so I have to work through that. Gosh, I don't know.
So you would say that you go into your head versus going out of your body.
Okay. Definitely.
Yeah, that sounds like rigid.
Yeah.
Great. Well, welcome to the beautiful world of being a merger and the beautiful world of being a rigid. And here's some really cool things that you should know about that combo. It's really awesome about the merger rigid combo is you in your heart have access to a lot of emotional richness as a merger. And most rigids have to learn how to feel. They need to actually get their body close to a merger, because the mergers are the ones that do emotions the best. They know how to savor. They know how to enjoy. They know how to feel. They live life feeling everything, and a lot of it is absolutely stunning and beautiful and takes your breath away. We know how to savor food. We know how to savor nature. We know how to savor friendships. We know how to savor experiences. And so there's a lot of beauty that the merger has access to, including the richness of grieving when it's time to grieve, and being angry when it's time to be angry. And, you know, it's like we can go there. And a lot of rigids, when we talk about that skeleton, it's like they have a core, but the core is hollow. It's like bamboo. And what a rigid's healing is to fill the bamboo with sustenance, with nutrition, with emotional vibrancy, with permission to be human and to be beautifully flawed. And so what's great, and what the merger needs, is to reel it in. Sometimes we're too much, you know, we're all over the place and we're not contained.
Yep.
And that lack of containment puts other people in pattern, which is why sometimes we get rejected. And that's really painful for the merger. It's like we're all this love and we're a big, beautiful mess. And why doesn't anybody want to dance here, you know? And so that can be kind of painful when we get somebody saying, you're too much. So what's really cool about your combination is that you can lean on your rigid strength of containment, of poise, of understanding a map and executing steps, and being able to contain some of that emotional wildness when it is putting everyone else in the room in pattern. They can kind of scoop you up. And so I just want you to really celebrate that you've got a lovely combination. And it's one of the combos, if I could have picked for myself, I would have grabbed. So just to let you know that they complement each other really well. And you can really leverage each of those patterns to support the other side that may be feeling vulnerable in any given moment.
Beautiful. Now we're all comparing. I'm like, whoa, I need that. Rigid's my second too, Emily. I like things too.
Yeah. And just the thing to watch out for, and the thing to be compassionate. So if you have a rigid in your life and you notice that they tend to judge quickly, they tend to look for the flaws in others. And this is out of a perseverance of not wanting to get hurt. So they have a tendency to be the judger. And all that is, so if you ever feel judged by rigid, if you can stay curious and be compassionate, because it's actually more painful if you think about it. If you stay in the seat of curiosity, it can oftentimes be more painful to be the one who judges than the one who's being judged. Because from that place of judging, what happens is they judge out here, but when no one's looking, they turn that finger and they start pointing it at themselves, and they can be more brutal to themselves than they can ever be to anyone else. And so what a rigid needs is our compassion and our understanding and our sensitivity, that when they are stuck in their judgment, they are stuck in their pain. And this is a place where we cannot judge them for their judgment, but we can invite them to bring in a curious mindset and to open up to generosity and to be generous with their assumptions of others and to be willing to give people multiple chances. And so that's one of the ways that we can support our brothers and sisters of the rigid thing. You give 3?
I have a rigid one. Yeah. If somebody doesn't show up for a call 3 times that I've scheduled or that we've chosen to be together, once they hit 3, we're done.
Well, those are good boundaries. I mean, the light side of rigid also has really clean boundaries. You know, one of the things you can notice about a rigid at a party is that if they don't want someone to come up and hug them, they close off their energy field and their body language so that people don't bombard them. People will walk right around a rigid. If they give the vibe, I'm not available. So, rigids have really good boundaries out of many of the patterns.
Would you say that rigids have like resting bitch face?
I think we all have resting bitch face. I'm not sure that that's necessarily a rigid. I know I have a terrible resting bitch face, and I might have rigid bridge. Also, a lot of people, because of our Western culture, have a rigid bridge. And what that means is because it's something that we're raised with culturally in terms of being high functioning, you may do a lot of the light side of rigid, but you don't do the shadow side of rigid. You don't have a tendency to use that as a secondary. So I know a lot of people who love a spreadsheet. You know, I love a spreadsheet. Who have a very analytical, organized, can delegate well, very good managerial skills. So they've got a rigid bridge, but they don't do some of the painful stuff of having a rigid wound. How about you, Rebecca? What you want to share what you're grappling with?
I am like 150% rigid, and I don't think I even have a secondary, honestly.
Well, I've only known one other person who I thought they're a rigid.
I'm a rigid. Like,
are you a rigid?
I'm a rigid. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, tell me about what happens for you when you get triggered.
All sorts of things, like reading through it, it's ridiculous. I'm super perfectionist. I always blamed it on being a Virgo. Now I know that's not totally true. I'm all about getting stuff done, organizing, which is a joke because my office is a wreck, but that's my creative side.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, like the wall. I even read in here where it says like how we complain, I think. Like saying more like attacking what we don't want instead of saying what we do. So like my birthday's in a few days and my BFF is like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, I don't want to go to dinner. Like, where is there to go?
Right.
You know, like, so
You know what you don't want.
I stay constantly busy. I am super inner critic. I'm super like, I have really high expectations of people that I know are ridiculous. I shouldn't have any expectations. My poor husband, my poor kids. I'm just like, no, like, I have a really high bar. You need to meet it. Like, I'm going to make you successful. And I do it out of a place of love. But also, like I was reading, it says that you, shoot, I dropped my page. Like not, abandoning self, right? To, and I had a single mom and I was taken care of by elderly, ill grandparents. So I was put into a role of responsibility at a very early age. And so like I remember being probably 8 and my stepdad, who has been my dad, I'm 40, I'll be 45, and he's been my stepdad since I was 3. So we're like, it's not a step thing, but just to be clear, biologically, he made us go to family counseling. And I remember the counselor asking me like, why do you feel like you have to take care of everybody? And I was like, I just do. It's who I am. So I definitely come from a place of good intention and well-meaning, but definitely I am a judgy perfectionist, like,
and when, what gifts has Rigid given you? How has Rigid helped you be successful in your life? How do you leverage its gifts?
I'm definitely very resilient. I answer that. I tend to only see kind of, I don't call it negative. I call it, I'm more like realistic.
Would you say that you honor your word and you honor your
definitely
commitments?
I'm super loyal until not until you piss me off, and then I'm out. But it takes, so maybe my secondary is endure, because I do like, it takes some time, and I give you and I give you and then I'm done. And I don't care. Honestly, I don't care if you're blood or not. Like, I have several family members I have no relationship with because
they took too much. It's possible that your secondary is enduring. You know, the other beautiful thing is oral, because of the disease to please.
What is oral?
Oral, I'm sorry, I meant to say merger.
Okay.
So you and Emily might be reversed.
Okay.
When the Rigid doesn't seem to be working, right? And the chaos isn't coming back into form and is not willing to be managed by your will, what happens then?
I shut down.
How do you react? You shut down. Okay, that sounds like the endure. I go
to bed early.
Is it kind of depressed? Go kind of down and in, withdraw.
Really quiet. I withdraw. I'm out mentally, emotionally, physically. I literally remove myself.
So, you know, there's so many beautiful things that a Rigid enduring combination, there's so many incredible skill sets that brings to the table. I mean, there's a smoothness and an ability to work well under pressure, especially if you're not being attacked and you're being respected. Like, you want, there's no one better than an endurer, a Rigid endurer, to be in control of an emergency. They will keep everybody centered and focused on what's important versus slipping into chaos. And if you slip into chaos, they're going to put you away somewhere that you'll be better off and everyone else will be better off with you not interfering. So they, the rigid endurer is someone who will steer the ship to the right course. They've got great vision, and they can move us from where we are to where we want to be. And that's a super beautiful thing. And the thing to watch out for, so when you notice when you're in pattern, when you're in rigid pattern, one of the things you want to remind yourself, you want to start creating an alarm bell that goes off. Oh, I'm judging, I'm defending, I'm being critical. Those are all signs of I'm in pattern. What can I do instead? So you want to switch to curiosity. Instead of judging, let me get curious. Because we're really quick to make up a story. Instead of believing the story, ask a question. What do you need right now? You know, so when you think about your kids or your husband and they're not performing at the place that you know they're capable of, you know, honey, what do you need to succeed? You know, what's missing for you right now? What do you need from me? How can I help you? So just sort of watching that critical and going into questions and being curious. And noticing when criticism is being used to avoid feeling sadness, grief, hurt, joy, celebration, savoring a job well done, letting yourself feel, fuck yeah, I nailed it. Somebody take me out to dinner, or don't take me out to dinner. Somebody cook me something at home. And so it's giving yourself these moments, developing the skill set of true savoring.
I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to not just me, but all of us about this. I do that shut down, withdraw thing. I always have said like, oh, I'm self-sabotaging myself, and I'm aware that I'm doing it, but I can't always pull myself out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up in a household with depression and anxiety, and there was so much stigma around it that I feel like that's almost why I don't let myself feel anything, even though I look like I'm fine, you know, like I'm not happy, I'm not sad, I just am.
Mm-hmm.
Are there some tools that you can suggest for when I am doing that I'm like,
yes. So
when you shut off and get it together?
When you are in an enduring pattern where you're shutting down, you got to move. You can't let yourself sit and wait it out until it shifts. If you want to speed up the process, the best, and it's so hard because I'm an endurer and it's so hard for me to take this advice. So I've had to create strategies and interventions to force me into it. Like right now, I've been in a bit of an enduring stump. And so, I show up for my trainer and I don't want to. I want to cancel. I want to cancel all week friggin' long. But I keep showing up and I keep telling myself the next training, it's going to be better. And I'm going to feel my brain come on even faster. And I'm going to bring more of myself on Wednesday. I'm going to bring more of myself on Friday. I'm going to bring more of myself on Sunday. But it's sludgy on Monday. It's like thick water, but I show up. So it's like noticing, like, I don't want to move, I don't want to fudge, and I don't want to open, and everyone can go beep themselves. So it's like, okay, ding, 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 I'm in pattern. And I don't have to like what I have to do next, but I got to move my hips. It's all about the hips for endurers. So if you don't want to go on a walk, can you turn on some music and sway side to side for a minute? And that is going to shift you. And what's happening with the brain with movement, it's the best pill we could ever take. And for those of us who have suffered from depression, mood swings, anxiety, there is nothing better that we can do for ourselves other than move our body when we are feeling like we're in pattern. It's the thing that releases all those endorphins. It changes our brain chemistry, and we need a solid 20 minutes. It's that 20 minutes that starts to change our state. And if we can start building a habit and going, I need an intervention right now, and I'm committed to myself, I'm going to do the thing that's hard. And it's really a lousy, in my personal opinion, that these things are counterintuitive, because the last thing I want to do when I'm in my enduring pattern is to move. And if someone suggests it when I'm in pattern, I kind of want to elbow them in the face. And sometimes I might. So it's a tricky situation. You have to really make a conscious choice. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to show up for myself. And I got to test it. And I'm going to test it more than once to see if there's something to it that's going to take me out of suffering.
Brilliant. That was really helpful. I tend to go for a couple walks a day. I think that is a good advice for all types, right? Because you move the energy in the body, and you get that, it's like a duck, water off a duck's back, right? They just shake themselves off.
Well, and there also, movement brings us back into our body. So we all go to these different parts of ourselves where we feel the most comfortable. A lever is going to go up. Endure, we go down. And aggressive actually kind of explodes outward. Like they go into their core, and they're the ones that are gonna move, usually without being told, because they just can't stand it. They have to move.
It's true.
And in oral puddles, we just kind of
merger.
Thank you.
Yeah. So there's are you complete? Did you do all of them? What they do? And are you complete, Rebecca? You feel good? You got what you needed? What happens when you're a compensated merger and jump around to all other patterns? That's me.
Yeah.
And then Vera Savage said, me too, please. So Vera, I think Vera is either a rigid or a lever, but I'd be curious to get your feedback on that. Which one do you want to take first? Vera said, me too, please, first, and then Elwood.
Okay, so we'll go Vera,
Vera, where are you?
And then Elwood, we'll grab you.
Okay.
But in brief explanation regarding the compensated merger, this is what it feels like. I'll never forget this moment. The whole class gave me the feedback that I was wearing a mask. And I thought that my mask was who I was. And so when they gave, and I couldn't deny, like 25 people are agreeing with the same thing. You're wearing a mask. We don't know who you are. And then to find out that the pain of being a compensated merger is you're the last one to find out. You've built this persona, you've projected this confidence, you dig in deep to give people what you think they want from you. And you start to believe your own story that this is who I am. This is what the world has asked of me. And then to find out that no one is believing that, and now you have to go figure out who you are. And you're the last one to know that you're wearing the mask. That was one of those bring you to your knees kind of day that I had to confront in myself. Oh my God, here's where I have my disease to please as a merger, but I've so identified because I don't want to be the one that puddles, that falls apart, that is needy. I rejected the neediness of the merger, wouldn't allow myself to feel that. That felt like death to me. I wanted to be competent in the world. Everyone can see me as doing a good job in order to get some sort of value. So that's a small picture of like how it's painful to be a compensated merger. It feels like when you're busted for it, like you're naked and everyone's looking and you didn't realize you forgot to get dressed. So let's go to Vera.
We'll circle back to you, Elwood, and make sure that landed. That's a lot to process. Vera,
it is.
Vera's body type is why I would guess that she's either a rigid or a willowy lever.
Mm-hmm.
Which one, Whitney? Rigid or?
Leaving.
Possible. Well,
so tell me a little bit what happens for you, Vera, when you get triggered. How do you react?
Well, I'm not sure. Sometimes I get mad and talk back. Or I get offended and leave, but usually I
I don't think she's leaving.
So I'm not actually sure about this whole thing. I'm
Well,
brand new to
you
this,
know,
and I
Leah,
haven't
I
read
was
the
just
book.
guessing. She's got a very athletic body. That's why, that is the exclusive reason why I went to those two on each end, because you're very athletic, huh? Vera, you want to stand up? No, go ahead.
Take us, let's go back to the regular screen.
Okay.
I
Regular
can't. I have just my phone.
Can you see the different patterns right now? Is that what I'm showing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So take that off.
Take that off.
Okay.
Great. Well, remember, don't get too stuck on the body types.
Okay.
Because various body combinations with patterns can really change how someone reacts to what happens physically. So there's lots of mergers that if they are a merger leaving, a merging aggressive, or a merging rigid, they may not have the merging body type. So Vera, what you've described so far makes sense to me as a compensated merger. What happens like secondary? Like if leaving doesn't work, right? If getting mad doesn't work, right? Having your feelings hurt and expressing defensiveness doesn't get you what you want. Is there something else that you do when you're in reaction?
I guess I just got offended, probably.
Yeah. The pattern type that deals with getting offended and getting hurt feelings is the merger. The most out of all of them. We can all get our feelings hurt. We can all be offended and we can all be defensive. That's humanity. But the mergers tend to have an extra sensitivity. I'll give you an example. I would say this oftentimes when my husband would do something that hurt my feelings. I would use the word humiliated. I feel humiliated right now. Like my feelings are so hurt, I actually feel humiliated. And I think what was happening, he goes, "Why do you keep using that word humiliated?" I'm like, "I don't know. It's just how I feel." And I think it was like feeling again, you're pointing out something in me that I don't appreciate. I don't want to know that about me. That is embarrassing. Don't tell me that. That hurts my feelings. And it was a real relief when I learned in positive psychology that feeling humiliated is a part of how our brains got wired, because it was a necessary survival mechanism. Because if you were banished, which was the ultimate humiliation from the tribe, you were kicked out of the tribe and you were likely die because you needed the tribe to survive. And so the pattern type that I've noticed uses words like that and gets hurt feelings and feels attacked tends to be the merger, but not in every case. So is there more information you can share about other kind of habits that tend to repeat themselves?
I'm not sure. I guess I will just have to think about this.
And Vera, I'm curious, like when you think about the things that you're good at, that you would say are your superpowers, could you describe any of those to me, the things that you do well? What are some of those areas?
Well, as Whitney said, I like to exercise.
Uh-huh.
I like to be around people.
Uh-huh.
She's an excellent skier. She's a great coach. She loves to help people.
You like being in your body?
I do.
Uh-huh.
But I'm not a great coach.
But do you
But thank you, Whitney.
You care for people? Would you say that you tend to be in your heart a lot?
Maybe.
And do you like to entertain?
I'm so now look, I don't want to put my stuff on her, but I would say Vera's very analytical. She thinks a lot.
Analytical.
Would you agree? Yeah, she's got a big heart, but her head gets in the way of her confidence sometimes, or we've had conversations. And she's also translating because this is her second language. So there's two parts to that. That may be.
That's pretty obvious.
Well, no, but I know, but then because that does not put people in their head, that doesn't necessarily mean it's part of their pattern.
Yeah, not sure in this case, if that has relevance or not. Not sure yet. Do you like to entertain? Do you have a tendency to dote on other people and how they're feeling?
Say again?
Do you have a tendency to dote on other people or like caretake other people? Are you a nurturer?
Sometimes, yes.
Uh-huh. And do you get annoyed by slow learners?
Yeah, if they are very slow, like if they speak slow, I have a hard time with that.
Mm-hmm. And growing up, did you deal like in your household, how did you feel loved as compared to how did you feel not loved?
I did feel loved, but I had a very good method of like pushing my feelings away, like learning to not feel, so that I couldn't get hurt. So like denying feelings.
Yeah. Well, my guess, Vera, and have you gotten the book yet?
I ordered it, but it's still in the mail somewhere.
Okay. Well, I want to connect with you again because I want to, as you start to read, I'm really curious what you'll discover just from this short little piece. My guess is that you either do aggressive or you do a compensated merger. One of the interesting things about the compensated merger is that it looks like the aggressive pattern type. A lot of compensated mergers can be athletic. They're fast learners. They're highly competent. They navigate their feelings in a way that they compartmentalize them. Rigids also can compartmentalize their feelings. They're always kind of putting things in a neat little basket to take a look at later or hopefully never. And so those would be my three guesses for you. I don't think you're the classic merger. I don't think you're the leaving pattern, and not sure about enduring yet. So this will take a little bit more examining. The things to kind of look at is to see like, how did you receive love? How was love not present growing up? Because it often kind of creates the path to what our pattern is. So remember, aggressive have a tendency to feel neglected, where a parent didn't show up in a way that we needed protection. And a merging pattern type, sometimes the merger can show up because they had a smothering parent who was too much in their space, who had a hard time letting their kid be independent. Other times they had a parent that was also a bit neglectful. So kind of the classic one is, needing a diaper changed and crying for an hour and no one goes to pick you up because they think you need to self-soothe.
I had that too, but I also think about the aggressive. I had that. The rigid, I don't know, but it's like I'm not organized and not on time. Like rigid sounds like they're more put together.
Yeah. They have a tendency to, there's a lot of rigids that may not have like a super clean house, but they tend to be really like there'll be drawers that are highly organized, but there'll be lots of other places that are total chaos, or they'll be really kind of a clean freak when it comes to certain hygiene rituals, but that doesn't mean that their kitchen's always clean, so it's not always across the board. But there's usually some place that's like really likes to have all the parts color coded.
I don't have that.
You don't have that? Okay. So we could probably
any areas.
Okay. So my guess right now is that you're looking at compensated merger or aggressive, and it might be an enduring secondary. So yeah, let's stay in touch and let's talk more when you've got the book, and we'll get some more answers. Elwood, let's check in on you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you answered my question. I also wanted to answer about the compensated merger, and I go between all the patterns. And my wife and I had a conversation just today about this. She was like, I'm setting up a new medical practice in Bermuda. She's in Maine. So she is like, I know you're a perfectionist and you're going to do it your way, but you got to make sure everything's lined up. And you've learned to be like a chameleon. That's what she said, because you have to be. When I'm a physician, and Whitney and I met like several years ago. So she knows I could be like all over the map. And then sometimes I'm very like rigid. Other times I have to be a little aggressive if I want things done. So I find myself floating between order patterns. So
Yeah.
I ordered the book, but I've been reading some stuff online. And why I signed up just like recently for this, Whitney and I were doing Contact yesterday. And then I found out she was doing this today. So I'm like, I'm going to find out what she's doing. I'm a little nosy. So, because I need her to help coach other people or to give me some ideas, because as a physician, we deal with people from all types, all backgrounds. And it's very important that everybody understands this, whether you're in your relationship, dealing with others in your professional life, or even now with this pandemic, people are freaking out. So you're going to have the most rigid person still deep down inside be freaking out. So everybody, no human is perfect. I tell all my patients, there's no such thing as a perfect, it's no such thing as a normal person. So I was like, be abnormal. It's okay, but understand yourself, right? And this is what this is all about. I mean, I've learned it in the past 24 hours. I'm like, basically crash course. So I said, I need to know like a little more about me. And this has been excellent tonight. So I want to commend you guys for putting this together. And I'm so glad I was able to, spend some time just learning a little, hearing different stories. So, and I have to run because I've got a conference call like at, it's 10 o'clock in Bermuda. So I knew I was doing this. I told my partners, like, don't call me until 10 o'clock. So, but it's all been great.
Before you go, Elwood, I just want to
make sure Elwood gets the recordings.
And Leah, if based on what he just shared, give us 2 minutes. I just would love to know what, from your perspective of this conversation, are there any questions you'd ask him to help him get more clarity?
No, I can tell he's the light side of Compensated Merger in all of its glory. I love, Elwood, that you are normalizing being not normal and totally embracing and in celebration of that. And one of the gifts of being a Compensated Merger is you meet people where they're at. And there's a generosity of spirit that comes with that, of allowing people to be who they are and to love them, their messes and all. And that allows us to be more compassionate with ourselves. So,
and just to finish up, to give you guys this story, 3 years ago, 2017, what put the things in perspective, you see how people are dying with this pandemic. I was actually on life support in January of 2017. And when I came off life support, I told my wife, give me a notebook. I need to write about everything. It put like everything in perspective, especially as a physician. Like, so I shouldn't be here, and I'm blessed I am. So it allows me to give back. Right?
Yeah.
So that's we'll talk next week.
Hey, Elwood, I'm so sorry you missed your laugh, because if I remember correctly, it's been a few years. But you have a contagious laugh. There it is.
Love it.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
I'll see you next week.
Nice to meet
Bye.
you.
Good to have you. Great work, Leah. You're so good at this. It's amazing. And how many years did it take you to get this? Just so people can have an idea of how long it's going to take.
I studied this in a classroom setting for 7 years with a group of people. And actually, Stephen Kessler, the author of that book that many of you are reading, was in my class, I think for my year 5 and my year 4. And so it's really great to get to know Stephen. He's a great therapist and a really just wonderful human being. And his pattern type is the aggressive. I think he's got the same pattern types as you. Yeah.
He's aggressive rigid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Is there anybody else that's on? We've got 15 more minutes as we wrap up. Is there anybody else that's with us that wants to ask questions? Otherwise, I'm just going to dive into myself. So
I actually have a quick question.
Yes,
I have a quick question. This is my very first time, so I'm just diving in. How do these relate to the classic narcissist, codependent, the regular terms that we're used to? Do they equate? Are they similar? Are they different? I'm just curious because I see a lot of similarities there.
Yeah, so like the codependent pattern type tends to be the merger, although all the pattern types can have codependency issues. So it's not exclusive to the merger, but the one that tends to lean into codependency is the merger. Narcissism, the one that tends to lean into narcissism could be the compensated merger or the aggressive. But that doesn't mean that they are. It just means some of the pattern types have sort of a lean into easier than others. The ones that tend to disassociate the most would be the lever. And yeah, I think that kind of sums it up. Do you have any other questions, Reem?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, I'm interested in this, and I'll get the book and see what it gives. I think it's very interesting. It's very interesting.
Reem, do you want to know who you are? Because I would
Thank
like
you.
to. I always want to know who everybody is. Who do you think you are?
I think I'm rigid. I'm from what I heard, and again, I haven't looked at anything, I haven't read anything. I think I'm the fixer. You know, there's a problem, let's fix it. Or if somebody attacks me, it's like, I want to find out, how can I make this better? I'm always the fixer, and I'm always taking care of myself last. And I'm very much borderline OCD on making sure everything clean and organized and all of that. So I can see a lot of those traits there. So I think I am. I mean, I think that's what it sounds like I am. So
yeah. Cool.
Is there any questions, Leah, that you would ask
Thank you.
her?
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, is there any questions that you would ask her to help us all get a little more clarity based on what she just said?
Yeah. I mean, Reem, when you get your feelings hurt, how do you typically react?
I always want to find out why or how or what did I do wrong. It's always like, how can I fix it? I'm the peacemaker. If I get my feelings hurt, I can also tend to be very defensive. I protect myself, and I either just don't respond because not responding is a response. Excuse me, my timer just went off. Cooking dinner and doing all this. So I either don't respond because that to me is response, or I just walk away. I don't like confrontation, and then I want to figure out why. I want to fix the issue instead of get more defensive physically or verbally or anything like that.
That could be a little bit of the merger, more than the rigid. The rigid's first response is going to be to judge, defend, and deny. That's not true. That's your fault. And they tend to go through the sins of the other person right away, to deflect anyone's attention on their faults. Whereas the merger has a tendency to go, I'll fix it. I'll do anything. Just tell me what's wrong. I'll never do it again. And I'm sorry. In fact, mergers have a tendency, and as do compensated mergers, to take too much of the responsibility in a conflict. It's like,
what about walking away? What about like just saying, you know what, that's on you. That's not me. I don't even want to talk to you. I'm walking away. I tend to do that a lot. That
could be aggressive, which we could also be wearing in compensated merger. We could be wearing the mask of the aggressive to avoid showing the vulnerability of feeling crushed by the other person. So we put on the mask of, I don't need you. See you later. You're full of shit. Or the aggressive will just be like, oh, that's so not my problem, honey. That is so your story. I'm not even taking that on. Bye-bye. And they'll just like, but here's the difference. With an aggressive, they won't stew over it. They just know really clear, that's just not mine. I'm not taking that on. Later. And they go about their merry way. And they don't like obsess over it the way, that's how you know kind of the difference between what a compensated merger would do is they would then obsess over what went wrong and how to fix it in a covert way. Also, that walk away could also be an endurer. They just go down, they go silent, and they have a tendency to recover slow. I'm going into my castle. You're going to get the silent treatment. I have to work on these hurt feelings. I will not pay attention to you until I am complete. And you have entered my good graces once more. And so my husband's primary is enduring. And so I've had to tell him, you need to recover faster for me. So you have to stretch yourself. What I need you to do, I know you're going to do this, and I recovered very fast, and I'm not willing to be punished by you this way. That is a manipulation that that doesn't agree with me, and it's mean, So, and I do it too because my secondary is enduring, but he will out endure me, the sucker. He can outlast me in the silent treatment. I'm going to my separate corner. So he's had to go, okay, I will make a conscious choice. So another word for that is stonewalling. And they're in partnership. There are, the Gottmans have coined the phrase, there are 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And with these 4 horsemen, stonewalling being one of them, are the repeated patterns that will show you the difference between a disastery couple or a mastery couple. And so the 4 things you want to avoid in partnership is contempt, talking down to somebody, giving them the eye roll, treating them like they're an idiot. I'm guilty of that. Stonewalling, giving the silent treatment, criticism, my sweet rigids, and what's the other one? Can't remember. But if it comes back to me, I'll let you know. So those are things to go ding, ding, ding. If you're in partnership with someone, those are all repeated over and over again. That's what breaks up marriages, those 4 things more than anything else. And Dr. Gottman, who's been studying this for 40 years, he has a like 97 success rate within 5 minutes, knowing whether or not a couple is going to end in divorce by tracking how many times they do one of the horsemen boo-boos. So the key to becoming a mastery couple is turning towards your partner when you want to turn away. And that's with body language too. So it's like, I want to run from this room right now. I want to elbow you in the gut. I want to say something mean, but I'm going to control my heart rate so that I can listen. Here's another great skill set for coming out of pattern. When we go into pattern, our heart rate accelerates. And when our heart rate accelerates more than 100 beats per minute, we are incapable of listening, which means we're having a conversation with someone, and the whole time they're talking and trying to give us their point of view, we are talking back, giving them our point of view. We can't really take in anything that they've just communicated. We can't receive them. So it's pointless to talk when our heart rate's elevated. And one of the ways that you can keep turning towards them, tracking your heart rate, and then you start to respond very slowly. I'm now going to speak, giving each syllable a beat. And as I talk like this, what you will notice is you have to lean in to figure out what the fuck is she gonna say next. And that forces everyone's heart rate to come down. It gets everyone present, and it slows your roll. And if you can't do it, then someone's just got to walk around the block until their heart rate calms down and come back. And my therapist will do this for me and my husband, because God knows that's hard to do. And she'll just go, I'll start revving up, and she'll interrupt and goes, I'm going to interrupt you now. And she forces our heart rates down so that we can actually listen to each other.
Interesting. So when your heart rate goes up, you can't hear yourself, let alone or all you can hear is yourself.
All you're doing is listen to yourself.
Right.
So whether this is in the workplace,
that's true.
It's so true. God, it's so true.
Yeah.
And for some of us, we're just going 1,000 miles per hour, and it takes a lot of practice to rev down in the moment of conflict or in the moment of pattern. So there are other things that you can do too. Those are a couple techniques to come out of pattern. Other techniques of pattern is to ground yourself. This is hardest for the leaving pattern, who finds grounding exercises somewhat unpleasant because they don't really like being in their body. This is where they like to hang out. Not in here. But endurers, this is where you're in your mastery. You can ground very well. In fact, you can ground others. In fact, you may not know this, but check it out. You tend to ground the entire room when you walk into a room full of people. Because frankly, you're not going to be uncomfortable. You're going to be uncomfortable in that room unless the room's grounded. You don't like being around ungrounded people. They freak you out. So you tend to tether everybody. Grounding yourself. so you can start to control your revving. Also, claiming your space. If you can imagine that you are an egg, your body is the yolk, but your energy body, your domain, the space that is yours, your sovereign right to your own personal space is like the shape of an egg. So the white of the egg is out, it's beyond your skin. We can actually feel things beyond where our skin ends. It's really fascinating. And when I'm in a classroom, I can really prove this to people by doing an exercise. But the idea is that when you are aware that you have the right to this space that comes out here, when that is in place and that is filled up with all of you, that is filled up with your essence, that is filled up with your autonomy and your sovereignty, that what that does is it puts your boundaries in place energetically. People will be more energetically responsible around you. They will step on your triggers a lot less when you have that unseen container around your body. Now, what's interesting is people say, yeah, but when you hug someone, if you make love to someone, what happens to all that space? They're now inside that space. What I want you to know about this is a little esoteric, but that space can come in right to the edge of your skin. It can go back out. It's flexible. So I think of it not just as an egg around my body. I think of it as a cell wall. And what a healthy cell does is it allows positive nutrients in that's going to make that cell healthy and vibrant, and it is going to block toxic, diseased energy that would have a negative effect on the cell. So if you can imagine that you are inside this beautiful radiant cell that's keeping you connected, that's keeping you out of pattern, that's keeping you in your genius realm, that's keeping you safe, sovereign, healthy, then you don't have to, and it allows good energy in and it blocks bad energy out. If you can put your attention on that and make that a habit. I had to practice this 8 times a day because I didn't have boundaries. I didn't know where my skin ended.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Can I, as we're closing, because we're at 6:15, we're on the hour, so I just want
Okay,
to bring you to the
thank you for
attention. I
that.
know you're on a roll, and I just want to say thank you so much. But I think this is a great way to close, is that helping people become aware. So for my energy, I got that down, girl. Nobody coming in.
You do.
Yeah, so what I need to learn how to do is hold it back from going into other people. So it's just being conscious of that. I like the way you just find it as a cell. We're in a cell, and we're in our own container. And when we recognize that, then we can play within it, but it's having the respect for others and, first of all, for ourselves, to respect our own space and put that boundary in so that, I mean, because the bad does come in, right? We've been dealing with one of the most catastrophic times in the history of my lifetime for, what people, how they would view the world. I mean, it's not World War I, but this has been pretty scary for a lot of people just because of what has been coming in. So what I did was turn off all news. I turned off everything. I have no idea when we were supposed to wear the mask, when we weren't. I would go out and people would dictate it to me, and that protected me. And that was my boundary. And when people judged me for it, I just blew it off. I just wore a mask around my wrist. I had it on me if I was supposed to, and I didn't if I wasn't. So I think there's a way to protect ourselves. Go ahead.
So the thing for you to be observant of is that even if somebody doesn't know that they have a right to that space around them, you respect them and you treat them as if they do. So you don't ever go into that space. You always stay at their edge.
That's a practice. So give us a practice. Give us all a practice that we could do as homework, Leah, to stay in our space, to better understand our boundaries. Would you do that?
Yeah. So if you just want to close your eyes for a moment, in closing, I'll leave you with the egg. And feel your spine. Feel it connected between heaven and earth. Feel it nice and tall and straight. Your spine represents your core. And so as you feel into this beautiful core of yours, give that a color. Any color that you want, the first color that comes to mind. And so here you feel your spine and it's got this beautiful color. And now let that color to glow. That color starts to glow from your spine, from your core. It starts to glow. It starts to fill up all of your body inside. That color, that glow, that's a little softer than the color of the spine, but it's the same similar shade. A little softer, a little more iridescent. It glows out. It fills up all your cells, your organs, your blood, your skin, your tissue, and it starts to float outside of you, filling up this cell wall of yours. It's like an egg. It goes out about anywhere from 6 inches to 18 inches outside of your body, behind you, in front of you, to the sides, above, and below. And so now that you've got this color, you can start to feel and fill in this egg every day. And if you can do it multiple times a day, even more better. This is your personal space. And what's really cool about this cell is that it can move in. If it needs to come in to within 2 inches outside your body, it's flexible. It can come in. So when you receive someone's hug, you can embrace them fully. You take them in and you still maintain your edge. You don't have to let go of your edge even when you're making love. And when someone goes out of the embrace, here comes your auric field. It comes back and it resumes its shape. You get to decide and stay conscious of what comes in, what stays out. You can open your eyes.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, so it takes some time to keep developing sort of this color. And if color doesn't work for you, find something else that does. And remember, when you don't have your edge, you're missing a boundary. And you need to go investigate, what boundary do I need to be put in place? There are 4 other basics that make up the essentials. And practicing these essentials like grounding, edge, another one's called me, not me, core, and the chakra system. There's a fast meditation that you start to implement, and it's the method with which we notice when we're in pattern how to get ourselves out. We put the essentials back in place by giving ourselves a timeout and repeat it over and over again. What starts to happen is you start to notice when one's missing, and your circuits get fried. You don't got boundaries. You're confused.
Right.
You feel a little lost, and those are all the symptomologies that it's time to do a course correct.
I love, Leah, that you can, this content is just part of your being, your ability to communicate it in such a beautiful way, and the power that you have to continually educate us and pour into us. Thank you so much. I want to wrap up to be respectful of people's time. It's 6:21. You were phenomenal.
Thank you for going over, y'all.
I hope that we could potentially have another conversation around this in the near future if you're open to it. I know you're expanding this part of your practice. So ladies, would you all come back and have some more time with Leah? Would everyone like to take yourself off of mute and thank Leah for her time? Does anyone have anything you'd like to say before we say goodbye?
Thank you, Leah. Very informative. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Happy to help anyone individually should you ever need it.
And Leah, let's close with, is there a book? Is there a course? Do you want to put your information in the chat room so people can contact you? Should we have them follow you on Instagram? What do you want?
I'll put my website in the chat and my IG handle.
Tour.com.
A couple books. You know the pattern book. I also recommend Eastern Body, Western Mind.
I'm listening to that. It's only available on Audible, though. It was only available on Audible. You can't buy it on iTunes. I love it. It's a really good book. I agree with that.
It's a great book. It's a really great book in understanding the psychology of the chakra system. And so helpful to know where to put your hands when you're feeling triggered and how to give yourself love and self-nurturing.
Is that coming in that book?
Well, that's a book I need to write. I read that book and got more insights on what to do with. So
you're beautiful.
One of these days I'll write a book, and I think it's going to be about that.
I think that we're going to enroll you into our book writing class then, Leah.
Yeah, I know. I've been thinking about it.
I love it. All right, ladies, thank you so much. Leah, thank you so much. I can't wait to see what our next experience is. This was really good to get us on live, to get us out, and to get us connected. So thank you so much. It was brilliant. Love you so much. Love, love, love you.
Love, love, love.
Ciao.